Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today I have a dev interview with Jos from Blackmill Games, who is the creative director of Verdun, Tannenberg and now Isonzo. This one is about the game, the design, the key features, the historical research done for it, how it differs from previous games in the series, and more. A part 2 of this interview talking about the response mechanics will come your way tomorrow, and it will be linked in the end screen and in the pinned comment. The footage in this video is from the beta version, filmed about a month prior to release. So, without further ado, here it is. Hi, so welcome. Let's begin with your introduction.
Hi, I'm Jos Hoebe. I'm founder and creative director of the World War I game series. I'm glad to be part of your videos. I enjoy watching them, so thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. So, before we dive into Isonzo, I want to talk about the whole game series, beginning with Verdun, on to Tannenberg and now to Isonzo. And you guys did go quite a long way with that, so if you could tell more about it.
Yeah, it goes very long, a long way back for me. We started sort of the first Verdun concepts already back in 2006. After, I've been passionate about World War I since I was little when I visited the Verdun battlefields. So sort of very inspired to create and do something creatively with it. So I made, in the early 2000s, did some modding, and then sort of rolled into actual development mid 2000s, together with the M2H brothers, and we sort of created a project, which then took off in 2013 when we started professionally on Verdun. I went into early access team, and from there we took off. So Verdun, for context, Verdun was launched in 2013 as a early access game. In 2015 in full. Then we did Tannenberg early access in 2017, full in 2019, and now we've come to the third game. So Verdun is Western Front, trench warfare. We try to cover as much of the Western Front as possible, from coast to the mountains, in a variety of environments, and it really simulates the back and forth of the trench warfare. So really a meat grinder with its attack and counter attack gameplay, really focused.
Very much so, yes.
The core DNA of our series is also this very concentrated battle in the trenches. You always spawn very close to your enemy. You spawn in. You have to walk up, and you're basically confronted with your enemy. You don't have to walk for 5 minutes. It's very accessible in that way, but also unforgivingly brutal. One shot, one kill is sort of the norm. So it's a combination of close range intensity and unforgiving gunplay. This then carried over to Tannenberg, where we applied a Eastern Front formula, where you fight around on the Eastern Front, the maneuver battles that were taking place there. Tannenberg, the namesake of the game, is the sort of epitome of that, where a large Russian army was encircled by the Germans and defeated, and this happened on several occasions. So there we did apply the same formula as for Verdun, where we went to each sector of the front and recreated it, and this sort of creates a variety of landscapes from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. Yeah, and then now 2022 we have arrived to go to the Italian front with Isonzo, which is set to launch on September 13th.
Okay, yeah. So the question that came up to me with that is, was the Italian front for the game after Tannenberg, was it the obvious choice you knew you would go for, or were there other possible considerations?
Well, of course, there's many fronts which require or could potentially require attention.
They require, require, alright.
But I really wanted to do the Italian front from the start, because it's the landscapes are stunning, and the Italian weaponry is more interesting. But we chose the Eastern Front first because of the importance. But the Italian front is also it required a certain level of technical and visual fidelity that we can do better now than we did back in the day. So the trenches are all carved out of the rock, which the way we render trenches is a bit different than the other titles, a bit more highly detailed.
Mhm.
And this is really only a recent thing that's possible with tessellation technology and other things that sort of make the rocky landscape come to life a lot better than we could have done years ago. So of course, I mean Middle East, Africa, the Balkans. There's all these theaters that could have chosen, but obviously after the Eastern Front, the Italian Front is the sort of where
Hey, there's time. There's always gonna be the next game. So,
exactly. Yeah, if it's up to me, I will create the entire war. Definitely.
Oh, I'm all for that. So now if you could tell about the historical research for the game, so how that was done and perhaps how that influenced the game. And not just in terms of maps and characters. The maps, it's kind of obvious. The layout makes a huge influence on the gameplay. I played it. It feels very different than Verdun or Tannenberg. But perhaps also other gameplay features that came up from the research.
Yeah, for the Italian Front, it is different from the Western and Eastern Front in that the material is very light. The amount of English, proper English literature can be counted on one hand almost. It's
Oh, wow.
and most of them reiterate the primary battles on the lower Isonzo, which of course was where the bulk took place. But that doesn't really help with setting the context. Obviously, we went on location as well and got some help from reenactors and enthusiasts, so that helps a lot. But I did feel that I was breaking new ground in sort of trying to portray the Italian Front and picking the battles which are to be highlighted. I mean, there's a short list of the most famous battles and locations, which we, in this case, after Verdun and Tannenberg, we really wanted to do a different approach and really make the levels sort of one-on-one with the actual locations, more so than we did in Verdun and Tannenberg. In the later Verdun and Tannenberg maps, we did sort of take geodata and converted it into a level. But for Isonzo, we went to the next level on this and really tried to get the landmarks into the proper locations and really make the scenario that you're fighting on Monte Sabatino on the 7th of August 1916 when you take part in the 6th Battle of the Isonzo. So different approach, way more focused on the actual battle, how it unfolded. And picking these locations, that was a challenge. Yeah, to get into the gameplay aspect of that, the mountain warfare is obviously a big part, but also general World War One tropes. What I'm most proud of, and I think one of the highlights of the game is the way we handle barbed wire, which is ubiquitous on the Western, Eastern, but Italian front. Also, and specifically on the Italian front, the Italians had a lot of difficulty with being able to cut through the wire. They famously had this company of deaths with their body armor trying to go into no man's land to cut it. They didn't have proper equipment at first, so this leads to a lot of stalemate. And I really wanted to make this an integral part of the gameplay. So in each sector, you would have a layer of barbed wire that the defenders can set up, and there are certain weak points that can be breached and cut. And it's easy to repair and to cut. So instead of players having to go in and manually create an entire layer of barbed wire, this is a very pre-set up system where it's very accessible to for players to repair their wire, and sort of it creating an actual barrier rather than if you have a free place system where you can place wire, it takes a lot of time to set up. But our game is very intense and very fast paced in a way, in that players are very close to each other, so you don't have time to spend half an hour setting up a barbed wire line. This is really an intense infantry close quarters combat simulation. So that's why players are able to repair the weak points and then overcome those as a central component of the game.
Oh yeah, so both in the beta testing.
Yeah, I hope that that got across. Specifically in the early sectors on Monte Sabatino, there's I think two layers of wire that have to be crossed, and you really create these sort of cinematic moments that you expect out of a World War One title, where the machine guns are blazing, and then you have to crawl through no man's land and cut the wire while you're being shot at. Sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. You create interesting tactics. So
Oh, definitely.
That's certainly one of the components. And then is of course the elevation is a big central theme, of the design of the levels.
Definitely. Yeah, so are there any more key features?
Yeah, well, there's many. Class system is refreshed. Where we first had a system where you sort of were locked in the class in the squad type. We made it more flexible based on the historical units as well. There's limits how many people can play a certain class. There's weapon limits as well, so not everybody can take a sniper or the Villa Perosa. Then there's the customization system, which is expanded as well. So, yeah.
I saw that. And there's also the flares thing. Could you tell about that?
Yeah, so the flares are based off how flares were used. It's of course simplified, very simplified, how these were used. We found that there flare signals based on the combination of flares. So 2 red flares means I need help. 3 red flares means we've captured the position. A white flare means fire the barrage, etc., etc. There's a whole handbook of this. So we try to convert that into a system where players or specifically the officers could fire certain flare combinations to trigger the call-ins that they can or the off-map support that they have at their disposal. So they can fire flare, and it has to be over a certain target. So they cannot fire the flare on the ground, but the guys in the rear actually have to see the flare being at a certain point.
Uh-huh.
And once they've done that, they can go back to the telephone line in their own lines and call in the barrage on the point that was marked. So if they fire 2 flares in quick succession, then the effect is boosted. So this is to simulate the flare combinations, like 2 flares means stronger barrage. Of course, if you fire 2 flares, you get 2 flares, then you can target another position. So there's sort of a trade-off you need to make there. I'm going to target multiple targets or one a bit stronger. So.
And that is the only way to call off-map support, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you cannot freely target.
Yeah. I do actually like this enhancement quite a lot.
Yeah, it's again we try to bring the history and look at how these things were, how this worked, and find a creative way to integrate it into the game.
Oh yeah. Alright, so mention the release date now as for the price of the game.
So in terms of price, we have the base game, which is 29 euros or dollars. Deluxe edition, which is 39, and a collector's edition at 59.
Okay, so anything else you wanna add?
Everything is for players who did play Verdun and Tannenberg. The game is a lot smoother in terms of gunplay. We've done a lot of improvements there. I would say almost all aspects of the game have been improved. Of the series have been improved in Isonzo in some way. So, a more interesting game mode in the offensive game mode, which is more exciting with high stakes capture and objective points, and also more cinematic where you go through the level. Gunplay is improved with inverse kinematics. It now interacts with the environment. Recoil feels more powerful, and is also fully procedural. So it feels a lot less rigid, and it's way more responsive.
Mhm.
Same goes for character art. The graphics as a whole have been improved. The environments are nicer. The class system is more free. There's more challenge for people who want to play and grind for different weapons as well. So an improvement across the board for anybody who played the other games in the series.
Could you tell perhaps more about the game mode stuff? Like I said, for the barbed wire and the elevation, like basically how different. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So in Isonzo, the maps are divided into sectors again, like in the other game. But this time you go in depth. So there's only one attacking side and one defending side. It doesn't switch. And each sector has one or more objectives. It can be you have to blow up a bunker, or capture a church, or another strong point. once this is done, you can advance to the next sector. And the maps can contain anywhere from 2 to 6 sectors. If the last sector is 1, then the attackers win. And this is put into a context of an offensive, which contains multiple maps. So, say the 6th battle from the Isonzo contains 3 levels. And if the attackers win on both the flanks, they get more reinforcements in the final sector when they attack the city of Gorizia. So there's the game mode, and it's also linked to a higher level. Then within the game mode, you would have different helps as an attacker. So there's the forward post that can be built. If you've captured the first enemy trench, then you can build a forward post there. And the defenders typically also have a forward post in the first trench that can be destroyed and rebuilt. So you can have a bit of a foothold when you've crossed no man's land. The sectors are typically built up of a first stretch of no man's land of about 50 meters deep, containing at least 1 layer of barbed wire, which can be repaired and cut by or destroyed by attacking engineers. Then a forward trench line, which contains the forward posts that can be captured as sort of a foothold, also containing typically heavy machine gun nests that can be destroyed and built. And then there's a stretch between the forward lines and the objective, which also contains a stretch of wire that has to be overcome. And there's an interesting, typically it's a trench network of sorts, or a city of ruins, and there's interesting combat space there. So it's unlike Verdun, where the trench is the capture area. These areas are a bit more concentrated and are inside of a bigger zone where you can walk freely. So it's a mixture of Verdun and Tannenberg, where for Tannenberg you had the complete freedom to encircle. Here you are restricted in the sector. However, it's not as linear as Verdun was, where it constricted you to really the sector and the no man's land that were between it. On top of that, of course, the verticality adds to another challenge. So yeah, conquering one ridge with a trench on it, then you have to, as an attacker, typically have to climb even further. But the first trench line gives you a bit of a foothold to proceed further. But these can be, some sectors are higher than they are deep. So there's really, especially when there's lots of rocks, even as a defender, hard to, even though you have the high ground, it's hard to spot attackers while you try to defend. So the high ground is not necessarily always an advantage for the defenders.
Oh yeah, the maps are quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's we specifically chose sectors for the 6th battle where there is a mixture of both elevated combat and also urban areas. So typically a village sorts. And for the we have one scenario on the Dolomites where you have to, which is really the sort of, when people say Italian front, what does it look like? They think of the high mountains, so that had to be represented. Even though most of the battles and combat took place in the lower Isonzo near the Carso, which we have represented with three maps. We had to also include a scenario in the High Alps, even though the combat there was typically executed by a small amount of troops in raids or even individual actions where a single Alpini captured a hilltop. But we found a scenario where in 1915, I think two battalions executed an attack on the Sasso di Sesto, which is also one of the most visually stunning locations in the entire Italian front, because you have the Tracime, the famous 3 rocks, which is sort of towering over the whole sector. I think it's about 3,000 meters high. And it's also a scenario where you directly attack up a hill rather than sort of having to stay on the rocks or fight in the valley. This is really an assault where they took the hilltop. So while also being surrounded by the magnificent area of the Sextener Dolomites, which is again stunning location to be. We were there and shot some drone footage 2 years ago. Really mind-boggling location to be in real life. So I hope we could do some justice to the players who haven't been there and play the game, that they sort of get some of that visual.
Yeah, so the visuals are very nice, I gotta say. In that High Alps map, it's very cool looking at the scenery and of course fighting in it. And of course poisoning the environment with gas.
yeah. It's the odd contrast of having both a visual beauty of the locations and then the horrible nature of the conflict and the fighting that they place there. It's an odd contrast. It's hard to imagine how that must have been for the troops fighting there.
Yeah, good stuff, man. So, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.